Hello, viewers. You're welcome to our lecture series on biological techniques. Today's lecture will be on the preservation of insects and arachnids. Earlier, we had looked at the procedure for the preservation of soft-bodied insects and arachnids, and we had established that the soft-bodied insects and arachnids, that is, those that do not have hard exoskeleton, are usually preserved in liquids, particularly in 70% ethyl alcohol. But before then, they are usually fixed in hot water for about 30 seconds and to fix their colors before they are preserved in the liquid medium, that is 70% ethyl alcohol. And we had also established that hard-bodied insects and arachnids are usually preserved with pins. So we want to now look at the various techniques, pinning techniques that are adapted, that are used for the preservation of these hard-bodied insects and arachnids. So the topic is preserving hard-bodied insects and arachnids. Since insects and some arachnids have a hard shell or exoskeleton, and all of the soft parts are on the inside, they tend to keep rather well after drying, even for long periods of time. Only a small amount of maintenance is necessary to keep them in good conditions. Many specimens in museums today are over 100 years old and look just as they did on the day they were collected. So because of the hard exoskeleton, the hard-bodied insects can be easily pinned and left for a long period of time, even for more than 100 years. Certain types of insects and arachnids may fade, but others hold their colors indefinitely. So the pinning technique and other preservation methods are usually very effective. Though the hard-bodied insects are now categorized into smaller insects and the larger insects. The large-bodied specimens are preserved through pinning and setting. The large hard-bodied insects and arachnids are preserved either by pinning and setting, while the small hard-bodied insects and arachnids are usually preserved through card points, card platforms, gluing to a pin. They are also preserved on slides and so on. So we'll look at the preservation of large hard-bodied insects and arachnids in this video. Then in subsequent videos, we'll now look at the preservation of small hard-bodied insects. Now, what are the equipment for the preservation of the insects, the large-bodied insect? Equipment typically needed to mount specimens include forceps, a pinning block, pins, paper points, a pair of scissors, glue, and a specimen holder. These are the equipment that are required: forceps, pinning block, pins, paper points, a pair of scissors, glue, and specimen holder. Now I want to look at pinning, how to pin an insect to preserve it, or the use of pinning blocks to preserve insects. Insects and arachnids longer than 8 millimeters are usually mounted on pins pushed through their thorax. The thorax is the region that corresponds to the chest of humans. The middle of the insects is where the pins are being introduced to preserve these insects. Special pins are needed to pin insects. These pins are longer, stronger, and thinner than an average pin and are called entomological pins. So entomological pins are actually the pins that are used for the preservation of insects and arachnids. Most adult insects may be pinned directly through the thorax. That's the mesothorax, the middle thorax, the thorax at the middle. Different groups of insects require different pin placement. There are some that will require placement of the pin on the thorax, but some, particularly the beetles that have very strong exoskeleton, are pinned between the stomach and the thorax, or just immediately after the thorax base at the abdominal region. Now, the procedure for pinning. We want to look at the procedure for pinning insects and arachnids. The first step is that you prepare a mounting board made of polystyrene covered with paper or expanded polyethylene, at least 30 millimeters thick. The second step is that you should push the pin vertically through the thorax of the insect. The pin is then pushed vertically through the thorax of the insect, avoiding legs as the point of the pin emerges on the underside of the body. The pin should be inserted slightly to the right of the center of the mesothorax. So the pin that's being introduced should be placed slightly to the right in the mesothorax and pinned downwards through the mesothorax. The third step, using a pinning block constructed from hardwood with vertical holes drilled to different depths, adjust the specimen on the pin at a height which leaves the top 8 to 10 millimeters of the pin projecting above the insect to facilitate holding. So we use the pinning block, and it's made up of hardwood, though it can be improvised. We can use packaging floaters instead of the pinning block if it's not available to preserve these insects and arachnids. The fourth step is push the pin with the insect into the mounting board until the underside of the body rests on the board. The insect is then pinned on the mounting board or the pinning board until the underside of the insect rests on the board. You now arrange the legs and antennae close to the body to reduce the likelihood of damage and secure them in their positions with bracing pins. So the legs and the antenna are arranged close to the body to prevent damage, and bracing pins are now used to secure them in their positions. Most insects are pinned with their wings folded. Examples: bugs, cockroaches, bees, wasps, and beetles are pinned with their wings folded. Then, after pinning the insect, you're not expected to secure a data label next to the insect. A data label is then secured next to the insect. The sixth step is that you remove the bracing pins when the specimen is dry. This will result in positioning each insect about 1/4 inch from the pin head. The middle step on the block is to position the collection label. The lowest step is used to position the insect identification label. Now here is a typical example of insect that's pinned in the pinning block. You have the insect and then the data label that's been attached to the pin, and this is the pinning block. The insect is pinned in the thorax, in the cephalothorax. The pin is pushed from the up to burst out or to emerge from the underside of the thorax and is then pinned on the pinning block. Now here is an improvised pinning block. Okay, the insect, this grasshopper, is pinned and the data label is secured. It's pinned through the mesothorax into the pinning block, the improvised pinning block. Remember that dead pinned insects are very brittle and delicate. They must be handled very carefully and never jarred, dropped, or touched directly. Specimens whose legs, antennae, and wings are broken and lost are essentially worthless. So the legs, the antenna, and the wings should be properly protected, not to be broken. Once they are broken, the specimen is usually worthless. Once mounted, insects should be left to dry in a ventilated drying cabinet or a cupboard for about a week. Insects left to dry in the open may be eaten by ants or cockroaches, so take care to protect them. Specimens are mounted so that they may be handled and examined and the greatest convenience with the greatest confidence and with the least possible damage. Well-mounted specimens enhance the value of a collection. Their value for research may depend to a great extent on how well they are prepared. So it is very vital that they are preserved and they are properly pinned for research purposes. The next method for mounting large hard-bodied insects is setting or the use of the spreading board. The use of the spreading board. The wings of certain insects must be spread because the wing venation or wing pattern is important for identification. These insects require special setting boards. So setting boards are used for insects that would need to the insects whose wings are expected to be spread so that they can be properly identified. Moths, butterflies, lacewings, antlions, and dragonflies are conventionally set with both pairs of wings spread, whereas grasshoppers, cockroaches, mantids, stick insects, and occasionally bees are set with only one pair of wings extended. Now, here are the setting boards. The setting boards. This is the standard setting board that's flat, while the angled setting board is a little bit tilted, and both are used for the preservation of insects whose wings are expected to be spread for proper identification. Procedure for setting. The first step is that you pin the insect through the thorax and insert the pin into the middle of the groove and the setting board so that the wings are level with the board. So the insect is pinned to the thorax and the pin is now pinned through the middle of the groove, just as it is shown in this picture. It is pinned on the thorax and then pinned in the middle of the groove, and that enhances uh, the spreading of the wings. It enhances the spreading of the wings. The second step is that you support the insect's abdomen with a weight of cotton wool or crossed pins to prevent it from sagging. Okay, the abdomen is supported with a weight of cotton wool or crossed pins to prevent it from sagging. Lepidoptera are mounted with their wings folded into the body, whereas in other groups, examples, the lace wings, the antlions, the dragonflies, and damselflies, the legs are displayed next to the wings. The third step, carefully they carefully they arrange the wings by moving them with a pair of forceps or insect pins hooked behind the veins. Then fourth, hold the wings in position with strips of plastic, paper, or cellophane and secure these with pins inserted alongside the outer wing margins. The fifth step is that you secure a data label next to the specimen. A data label is now secured next to the specimen. Then the sixth stage of the procedure is to remove the bracing pins when the specimen is dry. Allow specimen to dry for several days before you remove the bracing pins. Drying freezes the wing muscles of the specimen in position. Now here it's a picture showing insects that are being spread on the spreading board, or that are being set on the setting board. The insect is pinned on the on the mesothorax, and then pinned on the groove, and the wings are spread and braced with bracing pins. So that's basically the technique for setting the insect, large-bodied insects on the setting board. Thanks for watching. The next video will not be on the procedures for preserving small hard-bodied insects. Thank you. Continue to subscribe to our YouTube channel, and please like our videos.